Yeah.
There's also plenty of other news, and I really am curious your take on this particular. Well, two related, I guess, sort of related. The
Mhm.
first is there is some news about cloud market growth, and what maybe is most surprising is how unsurprising it is. Basically, it's sort of, me, I like quoting my rom-coms in Hitch at the opening when I forgot the rich girl's name, but she looks and says, "Yeah, I looked at the numbers and I'm still rich." And it's sort of like a look at that's what it looks like with the cloud. It's like we looked at the numbers and it's still growing. It's just like the same story we've been seeing for a decade now. And then on sort of the complete flip side, mostly just because of its apparent challenge with adapting to this, is SAP had some big news on their executive board, which we haven't been able to make heads or tails of. So I'm curious your take on these two seemingly unrelated pieces, but how they may be kind of related to the same thing.
Yeah. First of all, the Synergy research group finding that enterprise cloud spend is up 22% year over year. I found that interesting because, frankly, that's still a very high rate of growth. Anybody who's ever tried to grow a company 20% year over year knows just how hard it is to maintain that level of top line growth. So the fact that an entire market is still growing that fast at the size that the cloud is currently at, they are estimating $79 billion. I think it's a little less than that, honestly, on a quarterly basis. But that we're just we're quibbling here at a time when obviously this is probably a $300 billion annual run rate market that is still growing 22% a year. And the biggest reason is obviously Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, which are all seeing big increases in investment despite all of the doubts that might be coming into play and all of the fistfights and knocking of heads they have going against each other. At the end of the day, this is a rising tide. All boats are floating upwards. And we're even seeing, obviously, Oracle starting to come in as a fourth hyperscaler, increasingly coming into play in competitive discussions because of both their established nature as an enterprise vendor, as well as the cost associated with what they are providing. So I find that interesting that this growth is continuing. Obviously, it's been pushed a lot by AI and the interest in experimentation, but also the realization that it is easier and easier to understand how to make enterprise IT work in the cloud. So on the one hand, there's this immense demand still for cloud computing that seems to grow unabated over time.
Well, so there are two big observations that I had with this. The first, beyond the obvious, like, oh yeah, it's still growing. But the fact is that what is, I think, somewhat obscured in this data is that we are seeing, at least anecdotally, I'm certainly seeing a lot of CIOs talking about repatriating workloads, and I think
Mhm.
that is happening. I definitely think we are seeing that. But you see this increase because what is not accounted for in this, or what is not as easy to suss out, is that what we are seeing is just an overall growth in workloads, right? The amount of things we've automated, the amount of things we're now running is growing. And I think that's why this number is so high. I think, yes, we still have migrations happening. Yes, I think we're going to continue to see that. I think, I do firmly believe that the days of running your own data center are long past us. All of that, I think, is true. But I think a lot of this is being driven by the fact that there is just continued growth in the technology landscape, and that stack all the way around. The second big observation I had in this was the relative strength against Amazon. So Amazon is still clearly the market leader. So this study was looking at two things: the growth, but also the market share trends. And Amazon is basically flat, where the growth is coming to Microsoft and Google at the expense, interestingly enough, not so much of Amazon, but of everybody else.
Mhm.
And one other little sidebar note, that they included Salesforce in this list, which I thought was interesting because they're defining it as infrastructure as service, PaaS, and hosted private cloud. And I don't know that I put Salesforce into any of those categories, but um, that's a little sidebar. But I did find it interesting that as we've talked about in the past, we're seeing across a number of these sectors, cloud certainly included, where it is coming down to just the giants, and it's getting harder and harder for anybody, even other giants like Oracle and IBM, to really make any headway.
Right. I guess with Salesforce, you could look at maybe some of their data cloud or Heroku or their application development capabilities, some AI stuff. I guess there's $1 billion in there. I mean, would Salesforce even notice as big as they are at this point? But you know, if they've got a billion or two in there, I guess they count in that cloud market share. But yeah, Amazon is starting to run into its ceiling. It feels like from a market share perspective, and at this point, there's a lot of opportunity for still a lot of opportunity for emerging vendors to make their mark in the cloud world because of this demand for compute. I'm amazed by the amount of data that is used for AI, and I know we all take this for granted, but making AI works requires an order of magnitude more data than your traditional analytic use cases did. And I find that I find it stunning from an operational perspective, even as we can take it for granted as talking heads.